All right, so before we get started, there are two things that I want to go over real quick. Um, I want to go over when we'll have our exam reviews and when we will have our semester exams. So on Monday, we would have gone over um, reviews for fifth period, sixth period, seventh period, and eighth period. On Tuesday, we will have first period for our review, second period for exam, third period review, fourth period exam. And then the 11th, we'll have that fifth period review, sixth period exam, seventh period review, eighth period exam, and then 12th and the 13th are both half days. And so the days that we haven't taken exams will be um, for first period, fifth period, third period, and seventh period. So make sure that you keep these schedules in mind. So review will be either the 9th, the 10th, or the 11th. And then we will follow this schedule for our exams going forward. So our exams will start on January 10th for second period and fourth period. It'll start on January 11th for sixth period and eighth period. And then the 12th, it'll be first period and fifth period. And then the 13th, it'll be third period and seventh period. So make sure that you keep those things in mind as we go forward for our reviews and for our semester exams. The majority of today is just going to be review for our exam. I know that I wasn't here when you were going through the content in the beginning, but I do have a review. I'm going to quickly go over a couple of things. I'm not going to go over everything, and I'm not going to have the time to reteach things, but just give you a refresher and give you an idea of what you might see on the exam. So that way, if you're unfamiliar with anything prior to the exam, kind of go back, look back at notes or look back into your online portal and go through those videos or whatever. So that way you're prepared for your exam in the upcoming days. So wanted to go over schedule. We're going to go over the semester exam with the majority of it. So you'll have a range of questions. One of the questions might be multiply the following binomials. So if you have 3a minus 1 times 2a plus 8, it's just asking you to multiply these out. When you multiply two parentheses times each other, you have to multiply everything by each term. So for 3a, I have to multiply that by 2a, and I have to multiply that by 8a. So 3a times 2a is going to be 6a squared. 3a times 8 is going to be plus 24a. Now, same thing for the second term, that minus 1. That minus 1, I'm going to multiply times 2a, and I'm going to multiply times 8. It's going to be minus 2a, and then minus 8. Now, from here, should be pretty simple. We're just combining like terms. I'm going to combine the middle terms. Everything else will stay the same. 6a squared plus 22a minus 8. That is as simple as multiplying binomials. Something very similar. If you have negative 7ab times 3ab to the fourth power plus 8ab minus 14b to the fifth power. Really quick, let me fix something. So for this question, all you're doing is multiplying -7ab times each term. There's 3 terms inside the parentheses. You're multiplying it by the first, by the second, by the third. So that first term times -7ab is going to be -21. Remember, you can only multiply things that are similar. So you have -7 times 3. Those can multiply because those are numbers. The a's aren't going to simplify because we don't know what a is, but I know that a times a is going to be a squared. And then I know b times b to the 4th power is going to be b to the 5th power. And then we're going to move on to the second term. So -7 times 8 should be -56. A times a squared. Same thing for b. B times itself is going to be b squared. And then the last term, -7ab times -14 b to the 5th power. I need a calculator. So we have -7 times 14. It's going to be 98. Remember, negative times a negative is going to be positive. There is no a. I still have to include that a. And then b times b to the 5th power is just b to the 6th power. And nothing has similar variables within each term. There's no other way that I can combine because I'm multiplying everything within itself for each term. So this is as far as I can go for simplifying, and this would be my answer. On the review, there's a question that says 3 times a minus n squared minus 2 a n. And it's asking you to evaluate when a is equal to -3 and n is equal to 4. All you're doing is plugging in -3 when you see an a and plugging in 4 when you see an n. So this is going to be 3 times -3 minus 4 squared minus 2 times -3 times 4. First thing I'm going to do is simplify my parentheses. If I have -3 minus +4, that's just going to be negative minus 3 -7 squared. -7 squared. -7 squared is going to be 49. Then I can multiply everything out. 3 times 49. 3 times 49 is going to be 147. And then 2 times -3, that's going to be -6. Or, I'm sorry, +6. Remember, a negative times a negative is a positive. 6 times 4 is going to be 24. And then 147 plus 24. 171. So first question was multiplying binomials. Second question was multiplying a trinomial by one factor on the outside of the parentheses. And then the question that we just did was evaluate when an equation has 2 different variables and you plug in when given the answers for those variables. We talked about GCF in the couple of days that I was able to teach a couple of lessons. GCF, and so you'll have a couple of factoring questions. It's cubed. plus 36 w squared x minus 12. Okay, so for this question, all it's asking you is to factor. So if you're trying to factor, all you're looking for is a GCF, greatest common factor. What's the biggest number that I can divide from 32, 36, and 12? The biggest number would be 4, I believe. If I divide um, everything by 4, I would get 8 for 32, 9 for 36, and 3 for 12. Now, when I'm pulling out a GCF, I look at the next term. Next term is W's. Can I pull out one W? Can I pull out two W's? I can actually, every single W has a W squared. So I can pull out a W squared. And then for my X's, I have an X cubed, a normal X, and an X squared. So remember, the only thing that I can take out is an X because X is the lowest one, and it's the only one that I can take out. I can't take out an X cubed out of just an X or an X squared. So the only thing that I can factor out is 1X. We know that this 4 times 8 is going to be 32. We don't have anything to write for our W. X squared. I know that 9 times 4 is going to be 36. I don't have to write anything for my W2 because my W squared can completely come out. And then same thing for my X. If I multiply 4W squared times X, if I multiply that times 9, then I would just get what's written right there. -3 times 4 is going to give me 12. I don't need to write anything for the W, but I do need to write an X. And so this would be factored form right here. Greatest common factor as much as I can take out of that trinomial. You'll also get normal factors, x squared minus 11x minus 60. There's multiple different ways of factoring. You can use FOIL. You can use factor by grouping. You can factor by the box method. There's multiple different ways that you can factor by. But basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to come up with the multiples of -60 that are going to give me -11. So if I have, what are the multiples of -60? You can have 1 and 60, you can have 2 and 30, you can have 3 and 20, you can have 4. 4 and 15, and I think that's it, because one has to be negative, one has to be positive. So -15 times 4, I multiply those together, I get -16, and then if I add them together, 4, and then if I add that to -15, I get -11. So if I'm factoring, I get x plus 4, x minus 15, and that is how I would factor. You have more problems like 12x squared minus 36x Again, you're just trying to come up with a GCF. I know that I can come up with 12x. This is going to be x minus 6, no, minus 3. We can factor from 12x squared minus 36x, factor out in 12x. I know that 12x times x is going to give me 12x squared. And the same thing here, 12x times negative 3 is going to give me negative 36x. So this is just factored form of what we have up top. We have a couple of inequalities as well. 4x minus 7 greater than negative 16. We'll ask, sometimes it'll ask for you to solve the inequality, and then it will also ask you how to graph the inequality. So the first thing that I need to do is get x by itself. So I'm going to simplify. I need to first distribute the 2. 2 times 4 is going to be 8x. 2 times negative 7 is going to be negative 14. This is going to be greater than negative 16. I'm going to get x by itself, so I'm going to add 14 to both sides. I'm going to get 8x by itself. Negative 16 plus 14 is going to be negative 2. Trying to make sure all my math is correct. Negative 12, add 14, negative 2, and then I'm going to divide both sides by 8. And so that's going to be my inequality. Now my inequality is a fraction, and that's okay. So I know that around this point, in between 0 and 1, that's a half. In between 0 and 1/2 is going to be 1/4. The only thing is this is negative, so we're going to take half, and then we're going to take that half. And so our point should go from right there. And we're trying to figure out all the solutions that would make this equation true. So x has to be bigger than negative 1/4. So that would include anything to the right of it. 1 is bigger than negative 1/4. 2, and remember this goes on forever. So it can be 100, it can be 200, it can be a half. Anything from negative 1/4, and then anything to the right of that number line would be a solution to our inequality. We did talk about radicals and square roots in the few assignments that we did for, I think it was 4.1, 4.2, when it's completing the square and solving perfect squares. And so one of the things you might see on your exam is how to simplify radicals. So one, if I have a negative inside my square root, remember that I cannot multiply anything times itself to get a negative number. So we have something called imaginary numbers. We know that 81 is a perfect square, that 9 times 9 is going to be 81. And so this is going to be 9, but because it's negative, it's going to be 9i. And that's how we simplify that. 9i. And then let's say that we have square root of 108. Now, if it's asking you to simplify and not using decimals, so if you're not using decimals, you're going to use whole numbers. Square root of 108 is the same thing as 11 times 9. So 11 times 9 is going to give me 108, but I know that 9 is a complete, a perfect square. 3 squared is going to be 9, so I can pull that out. This is going to be equal to 3 times the square root of 11. And that would be my answer. So anytime that we're simplifying square roots, if it has a negative inside, then you use imaginary numbers, which is represented by I. If you can't fully simplify it without turning it into a decimal, you can pull out perfect squares like 9 or 16 or 25. Let's see, we have -125. That's also going to be equal to -25. Let's forget the negative for now. We can pull out an I. -25. I'm sorry. Square root of 25 times 5. And then we pulled out that imaginary number of I to get rid of the negative. We know that square root of 25 is just 5 itself, so this is going to be 5 I square root of 5. Sometimes we'll see simplifying expressions with exponents. So let's say that we have 16 times a b to the 6th power c squared. And then you have 2 a cubed b squared c cubed. And you're squaring this. So to simplify this, you need to apply the square root to absolutely everything, to the 16, to the a, to the b, to the c, and then the same thing on the bottom. So you would apply it to the 2, to the a, to the b, and to the c. So I would know that 16 would be 16 squared. This would be just a squared. Sorry. Square. And then b to the 12th power, c to the 4th power, 2 squared, a to the 6th power, b to the 4th power, c to the 6th power. And then we would simplify. So I know 16, what is 16 squared? 16. The top would be 256. A squared, b12, c to the 4th, 4, a to the 6th, b to the 4th, c to the 6th. And so from here, now that this is a fraction and we're dividing, what we can do is if there are 12 b's on top and 4b's on bottom, well, 4b's will cancel. We know that if we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So b to the 12th power is the same as saying that I'm multiplying b times itself 12 times. And I know that that's the same thing for b to the 4th. And so what I'm trying to say is anytime we have anything over itself, that's just 1, so it cancels out. So the first one cancels out, the second b cancels out, the third b cancels out, the fourth b cancels out. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 b's left. So 12 minus 4 is 8. So we can divide our whole numbers. So 256 divided by 4. That's going to be 64. We're going to leave 64 on top. No whole number will go on the bottom. And then you have a squared on top, but there's more a's on the bottom. So this would be a to the 4th power, b to the 8th power, and then c squared on the bottom. And that would be our answer. So when you have something like this in the blue, you need to distribute that square to every single term in your fraction and in your parentheses. Make sure that you're actually squaring your numbers. Anything with a variable, you're multiplying. So 2 times 1, 2 times 6, 2 times 2, 2 times 3, 2 times 2, 2 times 3. That's how we got those numbers. And then once we multiply and square everything, then we can simplify. And it should simplify to 64 times b over 8, b to the 8th power over a to the 4th power times 6, c to the 2nd power. Let's see. You'll also see problems like 2x to the 5th power minus 5x cubed to the 4th plus 3x squared minus 4, and it's asked to simplify the expression. So when it's asking to simplify the expression, all you're going to do is multiply each term by everything in the parentheses. So 2x to the 5th times every term, which there are 3 terms. So 2x to the 5th times x to the 4th is going to be 2x to the 9th power. The next one would be 3x squared. It's going to be 6x to the 7th power. And then minus 4, that's going to be negative 8x to the 5th power. We're going to do the same thing for the other term. Right here, right here, right here. First get negative 5x to the 7th power. And then we get negative 15x to the 5th power. And then we get negative, nope, positive. Negative times a negative is positive. We get 20x cubed. Now, it's asking to simplify, so we need to look for like terms. These two right here are like terms because they both have an x to the 5th power. And these two right here are like terms because they both have an x to the 7th power. So our answer would be 2x to the 9th power. Positive 6 minus 5 is just 1, so that's just plus x to the 7th power. Negative 8 minus 15 is going to be negative 23x to the 5th power, and then that last one is by itself. And that would be our answer. Sometimes it might not be multiplying, sometimes it might be adding or subtracting. So if I have 3a cubed minus 7a squared plus a minus 6a cubed minus 4a squared minus 8. Now, all I'm doing for this one is combining like terms, but the first thing I have to do is distribute that minus inside my parentheses. So this is going to be 3a cubed minus 7a squared plus a. This is going to be negative 6a cubed. Negative times a negative is a positive, plus 4a squared. And this is going to be plus 8. Then I can combine like terms. I'm combining the a cubes, a squareds. There is no other, just a, and there is no other whole number. So this is going to be negative 3a cubed. And then this is going to be negative 3a squared. And this is going to be plus a plus 8. That would be my answer. So when you're combining like terms, if it was just a plus sign, all you would do is drop. If it was just that right there, you would drop the parentheses and you would just go straight to combining like terms. If there's a subtraction sign in front of your parentheses, you need to distribute inside and then start combining like terms. You might also see something like m minus 8 squared. Know that that is the same thing as m minus 8 times itself. So m times m times 8. That's 8m. Same thing on the bottom. Negative 8m. And then negative 8 times itself is going to be positive 64. The only thing to do from here would be combine our like terms. That'd be m squared minus 16m plus 64. You might also see the quadratic formula. Two more problems. So if you have x squared minus 10x plus 25. If you're trying to solve with the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So remember that quadratic equations are in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. So our a is 1, our b is negative 10, and our c is 25. So for this problem, all you do is plug in everything that it's given you. So negative b, our b is negative 10. Negative 10 plus or minus the square root of negative 10 squared minus 4. A is just 1. C is 25. And that's going to be all over 2 times A, which is just 1. So let's try to start to simplify. Minus negative 10 is just positive 10, so that's plus or minus. And then I know the square root of negative 10, or I'm sorry, negative 10 squared is going to be 100 minus 4 times 1 times 25. 25 times 1 is just 25. 25 times 4 is going to be 100. 100 minus 100 is going to be 0 all over 2. So this is going to be x equals 10 plus or minus square root of 0. And then we're going to divide that by 2. Divide that by 2. So x equals 5 plus or minus 0, which is just 5. So that's how you do the quadratic formula. You just have to remember the quadratic formula, which is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I wanted to go to Desmos real quick. Um, nope. There we go. So x squared. Let's go minus 36. Okay. So if I have this equation, sometimes you will be asked to find asked to find the roots, asked to find the zeros, asked to find your x-intercepts. So anytime you have a quadratic equation, you have a parabola. Our x-intercepts are positive 4, positive 9. Remember, we can get our roots, our zeros, our x-intercepts by putting it into a graph, or we can factor it and solve for x. So if we had x squared minus 13x plus 36, we know first we have to factor. So what are the multiples of 36? 36 that would give me, if I added them together, 13, negative 4, negative 9. So when I'm factoring this out, this is x minus 4, x minus 9, and then I set those equal to 0. X minus 4 equal to 0. What does x have to be to make that true? X has to be positive 4. You notice I'm setting each parenthesis equal to 0. The reason I'm doing that is because if we simplify inside the parentheses and it simplifies to 0, 0 times anything is going to be 0. So we're trying to make this equation true. And so we're trying to figure out what x would have to be to make one parenthesis 0 and the other. So when x is 4, the equation is 0. When x is also 9, the equation is equal to 0. So um, this is how we find our roots, our zeros, our x-intercepts. We can factor and set our equation equal to 0, find our x-intercepts, or we can graph it. So I really quick wanted to go over the quadratic formula. I wanted to talk about zeros and x-intercepts, and then I think that is it. So we'll have the rest of class time for you to spend it however you wish. I know that we had a couple of assignments in the last time that we met with our lesson. So if you haven't done those assignments yet, I would advise you to do so. Um, if not, go back into your online portal and look and see where you might be struggling with if you need help for your semester exam. But these are the questions that you might see on your semester exam, so that way you're a little bit prepared. Um, like I said, we're gonna have the rest of the day, for you to decide how you want to spend it. But I'll be here. Let me know if you need anything from me. But we're kind of done for the day as far as going over the review.